Apologies, I didn't put the microphone on, so I'm going to do all of that again. Good evening and welcome to the Cleaner, Greener and Safer Overview and Scrutiny Committee. It's now 7, well, just gone 7, and I'd like to start the meeting. I'm Councillor Val Morris-Cook and Chair of this committee. I'd just like to remind everyone present this meeting is being live streamed and recorded for publication on the Council's website. Officers attending virtually, there is nobody attending virtually, so no one needs to raise their hand. Okay, item 1. Rhianna, have you got any apologies, please?
Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Hurrell, who is being substituted by Councillor Green tonight. And we've had apologies from Sheila Coates and the Director Claire Demmel.
Lovely, thank you. Item 2. I move the minutes of the Cleaner, Greener and Safer Overview and Scrutiny Committee of the 13th of June 2023 to be approved as a correct record. Are there any comments on the accuracy of this minutes?
No.
So are we all comfortable that we propose to approve? Yes? Fabulous. Super. Item 3. I've not agreed to any items of urgent business. Item 4, does anyone have any declaration of interest to make? No. Fabulous. Item 5, so I'd just like to welcome, and just for obviously people in the room, we have Cheryl Wells here. Cheryl, would you just like to say what you do?
Yeah, my name's Cheryl Wells. I'm the Head of Community Safety, Emergency Planning and Resilience.
Super. Michelle?
Good evening, Michelle Cunningham. I'm Thurrock Community Safety Partnership Manager.
Thank you. And the District Commander?
Good evening. My name is Anthony Atkin. I'm a Detective Chief Inspector with Essex Police and also the Thurrock District Commander.
Lovely. Thank you very much. I just think it's helpful for people that are maybe watching so they know who the people are that are talking. Fabulous. So item 5, we're talking about the annual report of the Community Safety Partnership, and I'd just like to ask Michelle Cunningham to introduce this item, please.
Thank you very much. So this is the annual report that has to be presented to the Crime and Disorder Scrutiny Committee for Thurrock in relation to the District's Community Safety Partnership. It provides an opportunity for you to review the performance in 22-23 and to provide an insight into our priorities and activities to address them for the coming year 23-24. And also an opportunity for councillors to pose questions to the District Commander and myself. So just to give you a quick bit of background as to this, and your pack includes the matrix, which is a risk assessment across all types of crime, which determines our priorities. So they're scored, it's a mixture of qualitative and quantitative data. From there, the strategic assessment that you've also got details the performance across the priorities for the year and our annual performance report as to what we've delivered. On the back of that, we have to create an annual delivery plan for the year, which is also being shared with you and is published. And this is approved through the Community Safety Partnership Board, which is a statutory partnership with members and representation from the local authority, police, health, probation and local authority. And fire service, and from membership from members, there is the portfolio holder sits on that board alongside the member for the police and crime panel. The priorities and plan will contribute to the health and wellbeing strategy for Thurrock, particularly in relation to Domain 6, which is around people feeling safe, are safe and that victims are supported. In addition, our plan has due regard for the Police Fire Crime Commissioner's Policing and Crime Plan for Essex. A very brief summary of the report. For the 12 months ending March, all crime had seen a 0.8% increase and antisocial behaviour has seen a large decrease in 34.9%. Obviously, we can have some more up-to-date figures from District Commander, so I won't go through any more of the details in that. The priorities for this year remain broadly as the year before. The only exception is that antisocial behaviour now has a focus on car cruising in West Thurrock. And the 9 priorities are around tackling disproportionality in relation to violence against women and girls, breaking the cycle of domestic abuse, violence and vulnerability, which is predominantly around tackling any gang-related activity in the community and aiming to reduce drug-driven violence. We aim to reduce harm to and safeguard victims from hate crime, tackling community-based antisocial behaviour and ensuring our victims are safeguarded. We have a priority around counter-extremism and terrorism, which, as everyone will be aware, prevent is a duty placed on the local authority. Human trafficking and modern-day slavery, safer streets through the increased visibility and community engagement. And finally, again, another duty placed on the local authority is around tackling offending and reducing offences. And predominantly there we'll focus on burglary and vehicle crime. So key areas just to highlight for members of activity planned against those. So we have a small pot of money for Operation Minerva, which has been set up by the PFCC in relation to Thurrock, and that will be targeted in Corringham. In relation to the domestic abuse duty, this year we'll be refreshing our strategic needs assessment and ensuring that our funding continues to be aligned. The serious violence duty has come out, and by the end of January we have to have in place a strategy. So at the moment we work through Essex with the Violence and Vulnerability Unit. They are in the process of writing the strategic needs assessment. It's not ready to be shared yet in detail, but we have had an overview of it. From there they'll be writing the strategy, and Thurrock will adopt the Essex-wide Greater Essex strategy in relation to serious violence duty, and then from April we'll have developed our own local action plan to deliver against that. Hate crime is ongoing awareness and raising, and we're pleased that once again we'll be holding a number of activities in relation to National Hate Crime Awareness Week in Grays, which is in October. The Prevent Review has just been published today, so we're now in a position to review our Prevent strategy and refresh it locally to make sure we're in line with national changes, and that will be coming through to this committee as a separate report in due course. In antisocial behaviour, we've been fortunate enough to have some funding given to us in relation to hotspot policing and also our environmental officers, and that's enabled us to increase patrols in relation to our cruisers and around Chafford Hundred Station. It's been in place 2 months, and to date we've already seen 2 seizures of cars and 11 fines against the public space protection order that's in place down in West Thurrock. So some really positive results coming through there already. We continue to have a strong independent advisory group to Essex Police, and through them we've now set up an independent scrutiny panel of stop and searches. Just in summing up, I think what we need to recognise is we can, as both local authority and police, we can only respond to those issues we're aware of, and reporting of concerns through the correct channels is key and something we really appreciate the support of members over, so that we can start to tackle some of those issues that I know you hear about in the community that don't always necessarily get to us. So hopefully that's just given you an overview of the report, and we can now move into any questions. Thank you.
That's super. Thank you very much. Yeah, we have. I mean, I'm sure that each of us have got, and we'll try very hard not to duplicate any questions, because I think that's poor. So, because I'm the chair, I'm going to start. And I'll go on to others. You've got to have some perks in life, haven't you? So, I think probably my first question is, what can members do to help promote the activity of the community safety partners? And there's sort of 3 that I'm going to that can probably put together, and then I'll give you time, because I didn't do that on the first meeting, and clearly I need to give you time to actually answer them. What role should members play in encouraging reporting, and what can we do? Because I think that's quite important. And then to the district commander, years ago, there used to be a lot of things done with the police, like safe things to put on your garages to stop your garages being broken. We see in Thurrock, it seems on a daily basis, probably isn't, but that's how it appears to be on Facebook, of cars being stolen. What advice can we give to the community to sort of, you know, we've all got track cars with, and, you know, I use one of those little envelope things to put my keys in. What else can we do that is reasonable to stop that happening? So I'll give those three and give you a chance to answer those.
So the first question about what can members do. I mean, I spoke to Councillor Green this afternoon during our Operation Irish Lions strategic group. The biggest ask from me, and I can say it from everyone this side of the desk, is that actively encourage those constituents that report things to yourself, any concerns within the communities, whether that be off-road biking, whether that be ASB, whether it be litter, encourage them to report that to police through online reporting. If it's a case of a bike that's driving up and down a pavement, through 999, because ultimately a speeding bike can cause injuries to people, as what we've seen in July with an incident that happened in Chapel St Mary. If we don't get the reports, which it's quite frustrating. I've been to a number of community forums. I met with a family yesterday, and if we don't get reports from the community about emerging problems, we won't know them, exactly. And we can't respond to them. And it's very frustrating for the community as well as for us when we go to meetings and we get told, well, I've reported this, and then I go back and look at our systems and find that, for example, in the Chapel St Mary case, which I'm not sure you're all aware of, it was a 10-year-old boy that was hit by a motorbike on a field. We had, in 6 months, one report of a concern around a motorbike on that field. Whereas Orsett Heath, which is nearby, we had 25 reports. So from a policing point of view, where I direct my resources is going to be where I see the biggest problem. Yeah. And Orsett Heath is the biggest problem, where we then directed our Operation Caesar, our quad bike team, to patrol. So when I met with the family yesterday, they said it's almost a daily occurrence that they have speeding bikes on that field. But we don't see that, because it's not been reported to us, and it's frustrating for them in the community. It's frustrating for us, because if we're not being told, we can't react to it. So the message I would ask members is just to vocalise that to constituents, that when they see something, they must report it to the police. People feel sometimes that they don't want to do it because it's dialing 999, or they feel that it's like, for example, I think that one of the excuses yesterday was that the bike had driven off. So they said the danger was no longer there, so they didn't think 999 was appropriate. That probably wasn't, but they could report it online. We still need to know about the problem, because if we don't know about it, we then can't look at the data, look at hotspots, and look at times where we could then put in policing measures or mitigation measures from the Community Safety Partnership team. So that's the only message. That's the message, the clear message I would ask of you.
Can I just add to that?
Yes.
Also, just want to add to that as well, is we often get opportunities to apply for funding, and 9 times out of 10, the allocation of the funding will always be based on data. You know, have you got the intelligence to support that that drive or that initiative? And again, we can't justify implementing anything in a particular area if the data doesn't support it.
That's sensible.
Yeah.
But I think we can all take that on board, and we will definitely pass that back to our colleagues of the request, because I think that's sensible. Because a lot of time people go, oh, there's absolutely no point in reporting it, no one will even come out. But it's spinning that message in a different way, that somebody might not come out, but actually you reporting that could in effect save somebody's life. And it could actually get us some funding. So I think it's probably trying to spin it a different way to encourage people. And it's not about reporting it to get a member of the police to come and knock on your door. It's about gathering intelligence so that the police can direct their resources. And I think that is probably something that we can really help with when we're doing the community groups and we're meeting people, that we can help with, because it's making it a positive and not, well, what's the point? Well, there is a point, and these are the reasons why. So I think that's a really positive thing that we can do to help.
Sorry.
I was going to say, just in relation to that point, one of the feedback I got in a community forum was we reported it, and when I asked them, well, how did you report it? They mentioned they put it on Facebook. So it's about as well making it quite clear what reporting means, because it going on Facebook we don't monitor Facebook. I'd love to be able to monitor every page, but we just don't have the resources. But it's just that clear what reporting is, what it looks like, and how they can do that. I don't want, obviously, from a policing point of view, we don't want people to ring 101 all the time when things can be dealt with via online reporting. So if it is something that's happened but there's no danger to the public and it's no longer happening, then there's a Essex Police through the internet. And it's quite clear from our site how you report things online, and it is really, really useful because it's recorded, and that's the data that we use around sort of directing where we put resources.
Perhaps we need a bit of a sort of a push on that, and perhaps if the Essex Police have got access to Facebook by putting something on it, so to sort of say this is how to report things, this is why we need you to report it, this is how to do it. I think you might see quite a take up on something like that. I think that might be quite a positive, and it doesn't cost anything. It might be quite a positive thing to do.
I just want to reassure members, in relation to your last part, that does happen. So we have, for Thurrock, we've got the Essex Police Thurrock District page on Facebook. We've also got a Twitter account. We've also got the Essex Police page. And our media team...
I will now have to go back and have a look because because often you get things pop up, don't you? Do you want to do this or do you want to do that? That has never once popped up on my thing.
I certainly would actively encourage that you follow the page because everything we do within Thurrock we publicise on our Thurrock District Essex Police page on Facebook. We've got 13,000 followers on there. Obviously,
but we've got how many?
172,000 residents. So it's 172,000 residents. So there is obviously a huge disparity. But I would actively encourage members to certainly point the residents in that direction as well, because we do publicise things like our engagement events, the Let's Talk events. We had an event recently at Grays Police Station that was advertised on that, as well as Thurrock Nub News and through the local Gazette. We also highlight good stories, such as where we've been successful in arresting people for some of the serious crime that we investigate. We also do witness appeals through that as well. So it's so important that residents actually, if they've got access to Facebook and Twitter, they follow us because that's where we put most of our information. Okay.
It's something that we as councillors can take back to our community groups and things, and, you know, I will join your page.
Your second and last point, sorry.
It was garages.
The garages.
And cars.
Right. Historically, and I can talk from both working within Essex Police and the Metropolitan Police, we used to have crime prevention officers.
You did, and they were actually really good.
They were very experienced officers that in the latter part of their careers they went into doing that crime prevention role. Obviously, we don't have a dedicated crime prevention officer anymore, but what we do have is a community safety engagement officer, which you may have met, Neil Brand. He's extremely experienced. He's a really, really good police officer, really knowledgeable police officer, and at engagement events, he will give that crime prevention advice. And he does that at the Let's Talk events, as well as the pop-up events that we do with the Community Safety Partnership team. Good. So that is still happening with Thurrock. In regards to advice that you might be able to give your residents in relation to car crime, it is a trend that we've seen has increased. In Thurrock, I can tell you that vehicle crime as a whole, we've seen a 16.4% increase in the rolling year up to July. It is something that we are targeting. Hotspots wouldn't surprise you, is Lakeside. Our biggest hotspot for theft from motor vehicle is the car parks at Lakeside, predominantly those in the multi-storey. So we have...
Not parking there anymore.
We have dedicated operations such as we have Operation Alien, which is dedicated around high visibility patrols as well as plainclothes patrols, not only to deter offenders, but also if the offenders do commit those crimes, we've got somebody there that may see it and catch them. As a result of some of the work we've done, Operation Alien is directed to Lakeside. We've got Operation Sculptor, which is a wider piece of work for the whole of Thurrock, and we look at other hotspots and measures that we can do, such as target hardening, liaising with the CSP, whether or not there are things like CCTV cameras we can put in place, things like that. We have seen, as a result of the work that we've done for vehicle crime, an increase of 221% in our detection rate. So that shows that the work that we're doing is working. But obviously there is more vehicle crime. So advice that you could give to your residents, and it probably might sound like common sense, but like things like making sure that you don't keep any valuables on display in the car. You don't keep valuables in the car, or if you have to, lock them away in a glove box, keep them out of sight. Other things such as making sure your car's locked. If you've got a keyless entry system, it may be worth that every vehicle will have settings where you can turn that off, or if it's inconvenient to do that, make sure that when you store your key, there are devices that are easily accessible and purchasable from Amazon, which can boost the signal. The way you prevent that is by keeping your keys away from your door, away from the front of your house, ideally within a what we call Faraday wallet, which is the lined aluminium wallet. But if you can't afford that, keeping it as far away, so if you put it towards a garden, so you're well outside of that sort of metre radius of what you would need for a car door, it will prevent them from boosting the signal. So things like that do work, and it's about residents looking at those type of measures, because ultimately these car thieves and these people that break into cars, they're opportunists. Yeah. There will be forms of element of organised crime, but that's not what we mainly have. It's the opportunists. So if we can remove that helps. Okay, super. So I've done 3. So rather than me going on and on and on, anybody else like to come in?
When you say there's a bigger increase in cars, is this just breaking in, or actually the whole vehicle? Because of ULIS, I know Havering are under this now, are people ordering, going stealing cars for the sake of it, so people can't drive diesel cars? Are they targeting petrol cars? So because of ULIS?
I don't have that data. I wouldn't be able to answer that question. The figure I gave you is vehicle crime as a whole. So that's not only theft of motor vehicles, that's theft from motor vehicles and vehicle interference. Theft of motor vehicles, we've seen an increase of 15% in the last year. But I don't have the data to say, is it petrol cars, is it diesel cars, what the motive behind it is. Unfortunately, with vehicles, there are the element of organised crime that's out there, that they steal cars to send abroad. But there's also the opportunist that steals cars because they want to joyride. So, but without breaking the data down, I wouldn't answer
that. Thank you. You say all about these operations. Was there an Operation Caesar in Aveley? I don't know if I've missed that at all.
In Aveley? Yeah. So Operation Caesar is a Thurrock-wide operation, and it's around the off-road motorcycles and ASB around off-road motorcycles. We look at the data for the whole of Thurrock, and we target. So you may have seen the quad bikes that have been purchased. So we have dedicated officers that are trained to patrol on these quad bikes, and we direct those quad bikes to where the biggest area of issues are, and the hotspot is Orset Heath. So that's where predominantly that they patrol.
Okay, thank you.
So can I come in on that one as well? Just because obviously we did a walk around Aveley, didn't we? And that was to address that. And that was with the lead police officer for that operation. I think some bits went in place straight afterwards, but in honesty, about looking at the target hardening, it's such a vast area, it was really difficult for us to try and cut that off. I have been in dialogue this week with regards to the entrance from Purfleet Road to see if we can block that off. So I've spoken to the environment team to look at whether there's some natural bunding, etc., that will really stop them coming off. And I don't think there's a requirement to have it as a public access. So it is potentially, so that is still with Vince. We've not forgotten that visit. It's just, and obviously because of what happened with the school, that automatically shut and blocked that exit off then anyway, which was causing some of the issues. So it is still on our radar. But in honesty, the reporting hasn't been coming through from Averley again saying it is a big problem. So it's sort of moved over further west Thurrock. So that's where our problem area is at the moment. And, just talking about that community intel, so some residents managed to get some video footage, and I know you did as well of one, but this was a real specific one we had. We've got that video evidence, we've shared it, and they've been recognised, so now retrospectively they're hopefully going to go and apply for a Section 59 on that person. So it does happen, but we are reliant on that community intel. So.
Thanks, Michelle. Thank you.
Whilst Thurrock has seen a decrease in reporting of ASB, but residents surveyed think crime in ASB has become more of a problem, has increased by 22 to 33%. This, to me, which I've been vocal on, which you are aware, shows a lack of reporting, including via Crime Stoppers. We have residents now scared to report due to fear of repercussions through any network. To get statistics which represent what is happening, this needs to be addressed. What would you suggest, and could we look at a campaign on the importance of reporting and around people who are scared to report?
I would reiterate what I said earlier. It is about having that clear message to not only from members but from us, from the police, from the Community Safety Partnership team. It's about that clear messaging that if people see something, they need to report it. Because if we're not getting those reports, we are in policing, in everything we do now, from the Community Safety Partnership team as well. We are data-led, as we spoke about earlier in regards to Operation Irish Lions. You have to have feasibility studies to do anything in regards to putting speed cameras up, for example. Policing is very similar to that in that we are data-led, that we have resources that we will direct it to problem solve. If we're not aware of the problem, we can't problem solve it. So it's about having that clear message by everybody that if they see something, report it. That is a campaign that we have done, certainly within policing and I know within the Community Safety Partnership for quite a long time. In regards to the fear of reporting it, I would ask that, again, the clear message is, if somebody's afraid to report crime, then they need to be able to rationalise why they're afraid to report it. I know society as a whole, with things that have been seen in drama, documentaries, that influences people. But we need to determine what the barriers are. And we can only do that by asking them.
So can I just ask something? Are you able to report online anonymously?
Yes. You're able to do that through Crime Stoppers.
Yeah.
No, not online. Can I?
Yeah.
Thank you. If you look at, let's say, Purfleet, the Garrison estate, there's a ongoing issue with motor off-road bikes. Me and Michelle have spoken about this offline, and we've actually we both, I think, we're equally as frustrated that we know it's happening, but no one's reporting it. Getting down to the basis of why not reporting it, a lot of these people actually went to school with the people that are doing it. They know each other, and that is the issue. They actually, if they reported it, most people would know to go to them. So that's where we need to actually get to the basis of the problem and actually address it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, we had that conversation when I was down there with you, and, I gave you some Crime Stoppers cards. I think that was about the drugs rather than thing, but, Crime Stoppers is absolutely 100% anonymous, and it would never come back on the people reporting it. I think that's the bit we need to push, but I know I've had that conversation so many times in forums down in Purfleet, and there is a real reluctance there to come forward. We've gone out and done face-to-face pop-ups and had those conversations, and nobody's come out to talk to us. We've been there around the shops and had a real problem engaging. I know that the person who volunteers and runs the hub gets told lots of information. So it's about how we harness what people are telling you and what people are telling people like that, and encourage them to either send it in to me to put an intel report or to put that into Crime Stoppers. So I think that's some work we can do there. And I think that also brings me back to your initial question, was how do members promote the activities? And I think some of the issue is, do we go back enough to tell the public what we've actually achieved on the back of that information? And so if you look at, and it's just gone out this week or last week on Essex Police's Facebook site, the 16 injunctions that have been got in Grace High Street. They've taken, I think, over a year to get them from, the intelligence to starting to apply for them, for the last 3 to be granted. So we've had 13 of them, quite some considerable time, but the last 3 took a while to go through court due to appeals, etc. Now, how does anybody manage to equate, well, I put some intel in on that a year ago, to that's what it's achieved? And that's where it becomes very difficult, to say to the public, each bit of information you put in is building up a jigsaw puzzle, but actually it can take some considerable time to get from that to getting a result, to then remind you to go out with, to come back to you and say, oh, actually, that's what it is. And I think that's some of the difficulty. So I guess there's an onus on us to give you more information and more positive news stories in a timely manner. I can think of a number of member inquiries we had couple of months ago around South Ockenden and the street drinking, and police have done a brilliant job, got a result, dealt with it. Housing are now dealing with it, but I don't think that's probably come back out to people. So unless the person who reported it originally has seen that difference in the high street, how do they know that report they put in has made a difference? So I think it all sort of links together, and it is about getting more information out, being more proactive, but also sometimes it's that timeliness. But we can get Crime Stoppers cards really easy, and they're just like little A5 wallet cards, Z cards that roll out. So, if members think it would be helpful for when you're out at forums and in the community to have a wad of those to hand out, then we can, I can sort some of those out for you.
Do any harm,
no,
it's got the opportunity, if one person does it, it's a success.
But absolutely, someone says to you, I'm afraid to report, that is the route to go down with it,
I know you've got some. I know you've got some more questions, but I'm spreading them out. Councillor Redsell.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair. I'm not sure if mine's coming on. I don't like it. That's it. Thank you. Just to put some positive on it, with the motorbikes, I mean, Michelle knows in Blackstops it's worked, but we worked hard to do that. Yeah, I won't. But it did work there, because we shut off places and we put hardening in, and we did all we could to get them off those little bits, and that produced the motorbikes for the police. So that was something that really, I do think that people getting in touch with the police is hard. I don't mean that it's hard getting the call in, but it's people have still got that, we'll get in touch with them and nothing gets done. And you keep telling them and you do it, and you've got to also remember, I've got quite an elderly ward, and people don't do that sort of thing anyway. They don't do Facebook, they don't do Twitter, probably wouldn't know what it was anyway. So I think we've got to find another way And as for cars going missing off driveways, we've had a few, but we're trying to tell people it's getting the car off a driveway when they got a computer to get it, into it in the first place. Putting those up and down are a good thing because they can't actually drive the vehicle off the driveway. So that making them take onus of where they live and what they do, that's probably a better way of doing it. I've got just a couple of short things. The residents who think police aren't doing a good job or excellent job is 78%. How do you get to that 78%?
Sorry, the perception data.
Yeah.
So residents that don't think police are doing a good job.
Yeah.
They
think the police are doing a good job.
You've got to say,
If I ask my residents, they'll probably say no because you don't turn up.
Yeah.
But that's people.
I was about to say, I'm sure it was the other way round, but
the other way round.
yeah. So how we get that data? We have an independent survey company that go out and speak to people, and they take with every survey they take a proportion of this district, speak to them, and based on the proportion of the district they speak to,
that's what I mean. I mean, I've lived in Thurrock 48 years, but I have never had anybody ask me a question like that. So that's my thing of how we got to that. It's how many people we're actually getting to. I don't know how you come up with that figure. I know you said that you do it, but
we do it because we use an independent company, so it's not police officers phoning up because it would be like getting the schoolboy to mark his own homework.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you start seeing 100%, then it might be suspicious. But no, we have an independent company. I can certainly look into how many they survey and provide that
population.
Sort of areas and where they go to get it, because it's good to show people this is what you do, and if it is good, 78 from 74, if it is that good, then we can show them that. The only other thing I've got to ask is...
I'm taking liberties now, sweet.
I'm taking liberties. I always take liberties, so you know that, Val. You're talking about car crime. I've not had any car crime in my ward at all. Last week, I've got 4 cars in one road, and 2 were chased by police. What I really want to know is why they don't go quickly. The cars are still there. Most of them have been there a long time now.
Sorry, I don't quite understand the question.
How when you've chased a car, or the Panda car, whatever, have chased a car into a road, they know it's them, they leave the car there, they've got police aware, why does it take so long to get it moved? I know probably why, because there's a cost to it.
There could be a variety of reasons. So if the vehicle is stolen, there is a decision has to be made as to whether or not the vehicle should be seized for forensics, or whether or not the owner has elected not to have it recovered. So as part of the vehicle recovery scheme that's offered to people through their insurance, some people don't elect for that because they don't want to incur a cost for having their car recovered from it being found. We put a police aware sticker on it so that we're aware that vehicle's there. I can't, without going into specifics and looking at specifics, I can't give you a reason why those particular vehicles have not been recovered. But generally, as you said, it depends on the circumstances of that vehicle. So if the vehicle's not stolen, and we haven't got it linked to any sort of serious crime, then there's no real justification to take that vehicle, because failing to stop for police, albeit yes it's a crime, it's not. We have to look at it from a proportionality. If they fail to stop for police but there's no link to a serious crime, it's a lot of money to seize a car and do forensics on a car. If we're not doing the forensics, we wouldn't be seizing the car. So I'm hoping that sort of covers that basis.
I mean, perhaps we can talk offline, but I do feel sometimes, because the cars we've got are in the way now and stopping buses and traffic coming down the road, so they're just sitting there now.
and they're not taxed, they're not insured. One of them's got sawn on it, and because people can find out today, so it's not like, you know.
But if it's causing obstruction, then that's a separate issue,
two of
and
them
that could
causing
be
obstruction now.
right.
Yeah.
Michelle?
Yeah, probably worth putting a member inquiry in on that to Simon Ward's team, because if they're, you know, there's issues around them there, they could remove them. But
I don't want this to be detrimental to the police,
right.
but because I'm having so much trouble, I got our enforcement to go out and do one of them, and I got quicker response from that because we got a something put on the wheels, so there was a quicker response from that than from the police. I did give it to a policewoman in a car that was coming down the road. She wrote it on her hand, the number plate, and I never got any response from that one. But we can perhaps talk offline. I don't want to either.
Yes, yeah, and that. Go on, Chair.
Yeah, just to reiterate, our environmental enforcement team will pick those up, so it's always worth reporting it through to them, and they've got quite good response rates for doing that sort of work, and they'll always liaise with the police if there's any overlap, so definitely do that.
Okay, Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. It's very in-depth. There's a lot of reading going on. On page 16 of the report, mentions about the schools in Thurrock. I know most of the schools, all by one, are academies now, but there's the service that the Essex County Fire and Rescue Service, the prevention opportunities. It says that most of our schools are not engaging in that, or they're not maximising the opportunity. What can we do to encourage all the schools in Thurrock, regardless of the ages of the pupils and their academic abilities, to actually engage? Because something like that will be a benefit to all of them, all those students, and it's not going to be a cost to the schools. So is there anything else we can do to try and encourage schools to take that opportunity up?
guess if you've got any links into the schools, you're talking to them, if you're school governors, and it's always about asking them, are they using that free service? It's asking about if they're using that free service. As you say, it is free. They should be planning it now. I think there's something going out in the next couple of weeks, again, in the head teacher's bulletin. We constantly push it out to them. If we get a question around, oh, can I have the hate crime officer come in to do something, the first thing we say is, you need to bring in the fire service. That's where our education programme lies. But it is just any opportunity, please, you've got to raise it with the schools, then do so. And it's from the Key Stage 1 right through to Key Stage 4. And it's across a variety of topics. They're updating it all the time. You know, and it's not just the fire things. It's not just the general fire advice they give. I know they'll probably have quite a lot around Halloween, bonfire night. They normally get quite a lot of requests then, but you know, they do it all year round, and it really is quite a low take up we've had in Thurrock. You know, and it's disappointing because it's free, and I know, you know, the priorities changed during COVID and lockdown. It's very hard to do all of this, but you know, we need to get it back onto people's agendas and them going out there. But anything you can do. I mean, I can send you, you know, the links and everything to help promote it if that would help. Ask the education lead to actually get something.
I mean,
out
is there
to you.
anything that the council could? I know we still have links with the schools, but is there? Do the council, for example, send out regular things to the schools?
Yes,
and
I put it in the head teacher's bulletin all the time.
Yeah.
I get any queries about it. That's the first thing we say to them. This is where the training's at. This is where the education's at. So we do push it as much as we can. And if we notice a spike, predominantly around hate crime in any particular area, I will ask the education lead to go out to the schools proactively and say, oh, we're aware you've had this problem in your area, can we come in and deliver this? So we do try to do that as well. But, there's also some programmes we deliver through the Violence and Vulnerability Unit with the funding we've got. So we've got an outreach team that work in 3 of our schools in the borough, delivering awareness of gang-related violence, our own gang officer, a gang and CE lead. She goes out to the schools, offers a drop-in to them. Some take us up on it, some don't, but she's regularly in the schools doing a drop-in. She will deliver training to any of the secondary schools, as will our gangs intervention worker. And we've now got a primary prevention worker allocated to our schools in our most riskiest areas. So she's can work across 20 areas. She was in one of our schools last week delivering an inset training. So that there are people there to come out and do that, particularly around gangs. And also the other thing we do is we hold, the schools that want it, we'll hold termly meetings with them. And that's multi-agency, children's social care, myself, gangs lead, housing, police officers, children and young people's officers within the police. And we identify what the concerns are in the school and look at what interventions we can put in, either as a collective for maybe a group of people or for individuals.
Councillor Kent, did you want to ask another question?
Yes, please, Chair, if I'm allowed. Thank you. Looking through the report, there's lots of information in here and lots of like plans on what we're trying to do to solve the problem. But there doesn't seem to be, unless I've missed it, there doesn't seem to be like any sort of, they're not like smart objectives, there's sort of no timetable. And I know it could be like, this could be a working document that things could change because we don't know what's going to happen next week, we don't know what's happening next day, to be honest. But so I understand that these priorities, you know, at the moment there are priorities because they're linked with the Police, Crime and Fire Commissioner's priorities as well. But we're sort of, I wondered if we could have something to sort of like a timetable of when you are putting these things into motion, so we can sort of like report, we can get a report back, this, you know, we've done this by this date as we said we would, or we've changed it because this happened and we didn't foresee that. There's no sort of timeline on the stuff. Sorry.
There's a number of action plans that obviously sit below this. So the, you know, modern day slavery, for example, has a 3-year plan around it with time scales in it. Some of this you're so reliant on, you know, like the prevent strategy. I didn't know till today that was coming out today from nationally. So you can't put time, you know, that didn't have a time scale against it because we're waiting on other things to happen. But and some of it is very reactive as well, you know, particularly around antisocial behaviour. But yeah, I don't know how you want me to bring that back to you without.
I think it would be very useful. Clearly, if we haven't got some timescales there, I think it would be very useful to add it to the work programme. Probably sort of at least, you know, we have the annual report and perhaps have a biannual report to see where we are with some of these things, because otherwise it's very difficult to gauge how we're doing on something. And you know, as Councillor Kent said, it's not smart because you haven't got your timetables, and you know, you talk about and the modern slavery being a 3-year plan. Those type of things would be helpful, so we're aware of that. You know, and then we don't ask questions about things if we can see the data and the, you know, we don't need to see the intricacies of things, but you know, the top level is really important. So, you know, are you expecting to do some of this in a year? Is it 2 years? Is it 5 years? You know, is it your current strategy? Is it your 3 to 5 year strategy? And I think that's what Councillor Kent meant. Okay, so a quick one. When we talk about restorative justice, we as a council we don't seem to own many alleys. We also don't seem to have many alleys that are actually owned by anybody else. They seem to be quite free land, and you know, I'll take one between Grange and Finchley, is an unadopted and there is no specific owner on it. So what can we do? You know, we know that the council hasn't got any money. If you go to that particular alleyway, honestly, the fly tipping down there is embarrassing beyond belief. You know, I can't expect to go back to residents and say, do you know, let's all do a like alley clean, which would be great, and I'm more than happy to do that. And by the way, we've got to pay to get all this taken away. It's just unrealistic. So our question is, you know, with restorative justice and people coming out to do support with, you know, community work. What's the opportunity of, you know, us identifying the alleys within Thurrock that aren't council owned, because we would look after those, that aren't privately owned, because I'd expect us to be taking enforcement against those, that are unadopted, not owned by anybody? What's the chances of getting the restorative team to actually tackle some of these?
Sorry, I think, is it the community payback team you mean? That
Yes,
probation?
yes. Sorry, not restorative
that's
justice.
Right. No,
sorry, wrong word.
Fine.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and they can do and will do. The problem is, like yourselves, we still have to pay to collect all that rubbish.
It's
at
going
the
to
end
be
of
collected
it, so,
anyway.
Yeah.
Do you know?
I think it's one.
Or we're
really
just going to leave it there for time immortal.
I think we'd have to ask our environmental enforcement officer to go Cleaner Greener, Vince, to come back with a response on that.
Vince has, which is why I'm now asking: can the community safety payback team get involved? Because you cannot expect residents.
Vince can work with the community payback team to set up how we
so
do that.
I'll rephrase my questions and challenges to Vince. So if Vince is watching, watch out.
And I'm happy to work with him and put him in touch.
Yeah, Grange and Finchley, please, is one to start with.
You've got them coming out to you, haven't you, to do some work? So, I mean, I can give you their contact details.
No,
if you want,
it's
but
fine.
It's also about, unfortunately, the alleys. You know, the community payback team. They've got to have facilities.
I understand that.
So that then can be proving an issue if that's not available in that area.
Well, there is.
But,
There is.
right, okay,
it's not too far from the Grace Park, and there are. So
that'd work then. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I just want to go on very not quickly. I just want to talk about domestic violence against women and girls. I did actually ask Sheila Coates from Thurrock to come as a subject matter expert on this. Unfortunately, she's unwell. But I will be suggesting at the end of this that we adopt and ask her to become a co-opted member of this scrutiny panel when we have reports that have violence against women and girls or domestic violence on them, because I think her knowledge is so vast, and she's got so much to give, and I think we've got a lot that we can learn, and we aren't experts on it. So a couple of questions here. We know that the last time the budget was underspent by about 490,000. So was part of that the new burdens fund? Do we know? Because apparently the government criteria for actually utilising that is like a minefield. So is that real money or is it not? And is that part of the 490? I've got a couple of others. Is that underspend going to be red-ringed? Just to, domestic violence against women and girls. And because we've had that underspend, what are we going to do to ensure that the government do not cut our fund in future years, because they will see that we haven't spent that and think, well, we don't need to spend that? Because I think that is a real concern for us as it is. And, how do we actually engage with the specialist groups that know this work backwards to ensure that we are getting the best information we can, utilising their knowledge and, building our strategies around what so they interlink rather than conflict?
So, firstly, apologies because I wasn't here when that report was presented, and maybe I could have put a bit more clarity around it. So, the new burdens funding started in the April. You couldn't allocate any of that funding until we completed a needs assessment, and that started at the same time in April. So, obviously, that's 6 months where that money wasn't available to be spent because we didn't know what we needed to spend it on. We made some of it available as flexible funds, but that was all we could do at the time. So in September, we obviously got our needs assessment, worked with our specialist providers around what we then needed to do, and created the actions and the projects that needed to go in place. Some of that was around recruitment. Well, obviously, you don't just say, right, I'm going to have 2 workers go into that team, start in the refuge, do this, and they appear. You've got recruitment time. So that's why we're always spending this funding in arrears. So it was all that underspend was all from the new burdens. It is not lost. I'm absolutely assured that it rolls through till the end of the spend on it. So it will be carrying forward. And obviously we're catching up now, and these things have been worked. There's also one of the projects that we'd earmarked the funding for, and for staffing. Once it started actually taking in feedback from the providers, it wasn't working. So you don't continue to fund it, you use it back. So Sheila has raised at our board around the concerns over the funding, and that the fact that the criteria can sometimes be limiting as to what you can spend it on. And she's asked us to pull a report together and write a letter from the CSP through to the powers that be around that. What we've said, we're just going to wait on all the data from all the local authorities on new burdens is due to be published. And when it is, we'll then be able to do a collective sort of response and make sure, you know, that it's not Thurrock that's misaligned to everyone else. From what Sheila's saying, that obviously talks to so many areas and has an understanding, absolutely not. In terms of our specialist groups being engaged, they all have a seat round our Violence Against Women and Girls board. So it's all input into that. None of our strategies, action plans or anything go out without their review of it and agreement to it, and obviously, you know, part of this they are delivering on some of this as well. So absolutely. So I would hope that, you know, that the feeling is that they're, you know, we're accessible to, and we're consulting with them on everything we do around this. So I think we've got a pretty good working relationship across our providers in Thurrock.
Thank you. Just to clarify, did you say that all of the 490,000 that was underspent was new burden fund?
I can double check with them, Evelina, but yeah, I mean that's my understanding of it. It was all the new burdens fund. So
thank you.
Okay,
Councillor Pearce, have you got anything else you wish to ask?
You're talking about girls and women looked after. What about men and boys? I mean, that happens, doesn't it? I don't see a lot or hear a lot about that.
Again, you know, any funding has to be driven by data and the strategic needs assessment, not just in Thurrock, nationally. You know, the driver and the focus is always around women and girls. Having said that, and I think it's certainly been to the Health and Wellbeing Board, we did a full breakdown of all the provision and services across Thurrock, and absolutely, without exception, all of those services are equally available to men and boys as they are women and girls, with the exception of our refuge. So that they can access safe accommodation. There was a case study in the report that was written, you know, of men accessing safe accommodation, being supported within our housing safeguarding team. There's a male worker that, you know, really has encouraged reporting and working with people and coming through. We've had specialist trainers in for our social care team, and actually came as well and did a presentation to the Hidden and Extreme Harms Committee around the support they offer to men and boys as well. So,
thank you.
Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. With Neighbourhood Watch being a vital service in the prevention of crime, what are we doing to encourage this in Thurrock, and do you think it's got a higher profile in Thurrock as it should, and how many groups are active in Thurrock?
In relation to the last part of that, I'd obviously have to go away and seek clarification as to how many active groups we have. I would agree with you. Neighbourhood Watch is a vital part. It's all about the community working with the police, and again, that message that we seem to come back to about reporting things to the police. I'm an Essex resident. I'm also part of a Neighbourhood Watch group where I live, and it is extremely important because it's about one of the fundamental principles that policing was set up as, the community is the police is the community. The neighbourhood watch is an extension to that fundamental principle. In regards to what we're doing to try to promote that, trying to actively get more people in it, again, this comes back to the pop-up events, the Let's Talk events that we have, and we actively promote that. We have, and apologies, the gentleman's name, Roger Pasfield. We have a dedicated member of Essex Police staff who is the lead for the Neighbourhood Watch and who disseminates the information out to the Thurrock groups around the crime stats for those particular areas in order to assist those groups in order so they're aware of what crime types are happening within their area in order that they keep their eyes open around sort of any suspicious activities that they can report to us. So again, it comes back to reporting stuff to the police so that we can act on it. As I said, I will come back to you with that last part. I don't know how many active groups there are. What I would ask from members is, again, that clear communication, what I've just said about what I would like from the community is, A, to report things to us, get actively involved in a Neighbourhood Watch programme, but also there are other programmes that we do in Essex Police and with the Community Safety Partnership team that will benefit the community, benefit the police around that information. Things like Speed Watch. We have a community Speed Watch. We have active community Speed Watch within Thurrock, but we don't have lots. So again, if we have volunteers within the community doing those programmes, things like I know Branksome Avenue in Corringham has been highlighted, Brentwood Road in Chapel St Mary. If you had community speed watch in those areas, we would then get accurate, detailed figures that come back to us to actually ascertain whether there is a problem. Because feasibility studies within Branksome Avenue, for example, haven't highlighted that there is a speeding problem, but residents report it to the councillors, and that is something that gets fed back to me. The other programme that we have in Essex Police is Citizens in Policing. Thurrock is one of the only districts in Essex Police, in Essex County, that doesn't have a volunteer of citizens in policing. That's something that I've said to a number of councillors and spoken about at forums. It's so important that we have those volunteers, those links into the community, and I would actively encourage members to voice that, because it would help us, it would help those communities as well by having those active members. They would see what we do, and they would be involved in pop-up events that we host, and they would be the voice of the community to the community about what we do. Because unfortunately, there are small minority members in the community that, for whatever reason, have limited faith in police, and it doesn't matter how much we tell them about all the good work that we do. Because of that, they might not. It might not boost their faith in police. But if they hear that from other members of the community, that would. Because if they hear about the good stories about how we've impacted on crime types within certain areas, how we've investigated certain crime types and supported those victims through the criminal justice system, that is what will restore the faith in policing, which maybe we've lost due to a number of news articles in recent years and bad stories about minority police officers in a different force. So it's so important that we get that buy-in from the community. Again, as I said, it comes back to that initial principle and foundation why police were brought, which is the police are the community are the police.
Can I add? Yeah, cool. Thank you. Firstly, I think we really need to acknowledge Roger Pasfield as the chair of the Neighbourhood Watch in Thurrock, because he is absolutely amazing. And he's always ringing me, right? So we are in regular contact, as he is, with the Community Safety and Engagement Officer. And we were with him on Sunday at the Grays Police Station Open Day. And he is putting a bid into the Community Safety Partnership for a bit of money to help him buy some more products, the crime prevention things, because he knows what people are asking for, and as long as it fits with our priority, we're always happy to help him, produce leaflets for him, etc. We promote Neighbourhood Watch on our Report It leaflet. It's on there, which I'm sure means therefore it's on our website as well, hopefully. He's a member of our independent advisory group to Essex Police, so again that regular bi-monthly contact, but also enabling him to bring messages from Neighbourhood Watch into Policing Forum. He's just committed to attend 2 pop-up events that we've got going on in October in Seabrook Rise and Grays High Street. He came out and promoted Dog Watch quite a while ago with us when we had the Safer Streets funding, so he's in Grays Park and got a number of people signed up to Dog Watch, and that was also, we enabled that by giving him some packs to hand out to promote. So we can always do more, but just be assured we do work quite closely with Roger, but I think the challenge about how many active ones we've got across the district is a good one, and I wouldn't know either.
I think years ago, don't always hark back to the past, but years ago you used to see loads of signs like this is a neighbourhood watch area. This is I think it's perception that it's not really. There's obviously great work going on, and let's not take that away from what Roger and the other teams are doing. But it's just there's a lot of movement, been a lot of movement in. There's been a lot of expansion of residents and here. So I think it might be something to try and promote more, to get more people involved, and let's get those signs up, because it's perception then, this is a bit of a watched area, it's a neighbourhood watch area, let's might move on to somewhere else. So I think it's one of those that, if it's working well in some areas, let's see, how well is it actually working across the borough? Are there pockets of opportunities where we can actually go in and do some work with the communities and try and encourage that to sort of start up again? Because it used to be really well attended, the neighbourhood watch groups that you would always go to, you'd be invited to and things. But as I say, to me, it's perception that it's going on, but how many people are actually aware it's going on, and how many people could benefit by adding to that. Councillor Redfield, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, you just picked up something I said. I mean, Neighbourhood Watch seems to be on the decline, really, and I know around my area there's Neighbourhood Watch signs up, but they've all worn out. So, nobody sees them anymore, so nothing's put out there anymore. So, and whether it's people don't want to get together anymore, I don't really know. Do we still do cameras for general public to go out with the police and do that sort of speed
That's the community speed watch we do. Yeah. Again, unfortunately, we do have active members, but we would benefit from more. And as I said, that's something that I have communicated at forums that I've attended, and certainly my colleagues in the police are very much the same. I just wanted to come back to something that you said about the decline. I think certainly I can talk from two sides, so from the policing side as well as Neighbourhood Watch side, as a Neighbourhood Watch member. Neighbourhood Watch has moved with the time, so might not necessarily have the Neighbourhood Watch meetings, but certainly the estate I live at, we have a Neighbourhood Watch WhatsApp group, and we talk on that WhatsApp group quite regularly. I've seen many of Ring doorbell footage that appear on that group of suspicious people that seem to be walking past, which then turn out to be the neighbour or somebody that lives on the estate. So I would challenge about the decline, because I think it might be a perception there's a decline. There certainly isn't from where I see it. My WhatsApp group, there's over 500 people on that WhatsApp group for the estate. So it might be that we've just adapted to, yeah.
Sorry, Chair, I didn't mean there was a decline, because I don't know, but it just seems the perception of you don't hear it so much anymore, and you don't. I've got friends with Black Shots in Thurrock. We just do a lot of we fund and we do a lot of good things. So we do that, but that sort of thing never comes up. But the speeding cameras and things do. We've asked many times, even in Black Shots Lane, to have, but nothing. It seems we've got to have a lot of accidents before we can bring something in.
So I've had a lot of contact from members raising concerns within their constituents around speeding. There have been feasibility studies within certain areas that obviously this comes back to the data. We are very data driven, and for the Highways Authority and certainly the Transport Development, apology, I might not fully conversant with all the different names, but certainly for anyone to put in speed cameras or target harden with speed humps and things like that, we are data driven. We have to have that feasibility study, because if there isn't a problem, then we won't do it. And I say we won't, it's a royal we. From a policing point of view, when we get hold of an area that is a concern, like we did with Branksome Avenue, last Thursday we had our cadets doing a community speed watch. We also had our police officers actually with speed guns on Branksome Avenue. I haven't got the statistics with me at the moment. Sorry?
I've been out with him in Branksome Avenue, so yeah.
So we do that, and obviously sometimes the perception of the problem is not necessarily what the data shows, and I think that could be said about crime itself as well. There in certain areas of Thurrock, there's a greater fear of crime than crime itself. And it's again comes to the messaging, and I've spoken to a number of people. It's about when we speak to those community forums about actually giving them proper information, proper statistics, so that they can make an informed decision. Because there is, unfortunately, social media is a prime example. There will be things that were put on social media that is not true. We've had that in Chafford 100 recently, where somebody put on there that there'd been a stabbing, and we then spent a number of hours, days, trying to actually identify what that incident was, and we never identified it. The likelihood is it never happened. But because people just put things like that on, it then creates a fear of crime in that area. And it's important for all of us as public officials that we give accurate information around statistics, to give that the public the opportunity to make those informed decisions, actually whether or not their area is a crime hotspot.
You certainly can.
When we've got Michelle coming back next, would it be worth inviting Roger to come along as an expert in Neighbourhood Watch?
I can't answer for Roger.
Yeah, we can invite him when we're doing the 6-month review. I think that would be a really good opportunity. Yeah, good thinking. Thank you. Councillor Kent. No more questions. Councillor Green, for you, any more questions?
Switch off. Just one more. Per page 16, it states Thurrock is the highest ranked in Essex relating to environmental ASB. What type of environmental ASB is this, and what are we doing to tackle this head on?
I would say, obviously, we have a number of different types of ASB in Thurrock. We've got the car cruising, we've got the off-road biking. The car cruising is probably one of the biggest issues, and we have Operation Irish Lions that is there to tackle that, and it's not just so that operation has been set up not just to throw a load of police officers at it to create a short-term deterrent, but we're also looking at long-term measures, and we work very closely with the Community Safety Partnership team and other parts of the council around sort of target considerations to target hardening. But again, this all comes back to what we spoke about earlier about data-led, and it takes time to gather that data. And as we discussed earlier today, we had that data come back, and it's now been interpreted, and we should have a report by the end of December. So, yeah, we are fully aware of the different types in ASB in Thurrock, and we have different operations to try and combat those elements of ASB, whether that be Operation Irish Lions for the car cruisers, Operation Caesar for the off-road bikes, Operation Grip for the ASB in Grays High Street, Operation Dial for the ASB at Lakeside. So they are problems we've identified that we are taking action to problem solve.
Thank you. Any more? Councillor Pearce again. So you got the rest, you got me. Okay. A couple of bits. On page 17, you talk about 9.0 about the opiate users. I recently watched the documentary Painkillers that was about all the opiate users in America. Absolutely terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And we know that sort of things do come across. Are we able to do anything, and, you know, without being disrespectful here, to educate our doctors about the prescribing of something that actually is horrendous outcomes? It might cure the pain for a while, but the addiction is just not worth the reduction in the pain. What can we do, and not, this is the royal we, by the way, what can we do to work with the medical teams? Because, you know, you've got somebody in front of you that's in absolute extreme pain. Your first thing is to give something that's going to do it, but actually you're then really giving them, in effect, taking a broad view, a death sentence, aren't you? Because it's an addiction. What can we do to really educate people and to try and not become what the United States is?
I think it's a really good challenge. Unfortunately, it's not something I'm able to answer around that. We've got a Director of Public Health, and we've also now got the Combating Drugs and Alcohol Partnership. So I think, sorry again, you know, but that would need to be passed to them to come back to you with that answer around it. Because
can I ask you to do that?
Yeah, of course I can.
I
Yeah.
think something needs to turn. District Commander. I think it's something that I think we can't sort of put our heads in the sand and hope it's not going to happen. But if you could pass that on, and I would be very interested in, I'd like a report back to the members of this panel, not a report, but an answer back about what can we do in conjunction, because obviously it's going to be a policing problem as well, isn't it? It's a frightening thing.
I just on the flip side of that, obviously the United States is a different entity to the United Kingdom in the sense that we have an NHS system, and we have a system whereby the NHS prescribe drugs that are authorised by public health, and whereas in America, the way they deal with prescription drugs is different. Though it goes through the FDA, they also are allowed to have drug companies lobby their doctors around prescribing certain drugs. We don't have that.
Okay, that's quite reassuring, because I didn't know that, and I don't suppose you might.
Sorry, Val. I think sometimes it might be something that could go to health and wellbeing, and then feed back to us.
Yeah.
Because that's where it would sit, I would think, on health and wellbeing. It wouldn't really sit well with us.
Well, it
here,
would when it becomes a crime.
Yeah, I
and
know
it's a problem.
that, but the crime.
It's
But I
like
think
just-
it would probably sit with health and wellbeing, and then come back to us as a feedback.
Yeah, that's perfect. But that was a really helpful comment, because that does give me some reassurance, to be honest. So thank you. Border control with it is frightening with modern slavery and human trafficking. You know, we had the tragic, you know, death of, was it 18 people that was just 30, sorry, and you know, there is no words to cover that, but we know that this does go on, and we know that people are controlled as well. Do we do work with like the border force, because they often go in and do right to work checks and different things like that, and how do we let people, because there's certain ways, if you think your drink's been spiked or you've got a concern, there's certain things you can do. If you think someone's behind you, you can put your PIN number in backwards, all things like that. What can we do, and this again is the royal we, to give people, and it's like a safe word or something that they can say, you know, like they do with abusers. What can we do? Because people that are subject to modern slavery and human trafficking, you know, they probably are working somewhere in this borough, in some organisations, and it's just really how you get to those people, and it's not easy, is it, at all? Because, you know, there is crime, like serious crime behind that, always driving that. But, you know, when you see what's going on, it's, you know, if we can save one person, it's worth it, isn't it? And it's probably a rhetorical question because you're not going to be able to answer it. But I just think those type of things we really do have to be mindful of, because it is a growing trend everywhere. And is it just a growing trend, or is it because we're much more aware of it now and we didn't used to be aware of it?
I think you hit the nail on the head with that last bit. I think we're becoming more aware of it, and therefore we're more likely to see some of the signs of it, and therefore it then comes back to how we started this evening. It's about people reporting it. So Essex Police, we have Operation Bluebird, which is...
How do you remember all these names? I might give you a quiz at the end.
I'll tell you what, operation names, I've got plenty. Having been a police officer for 23 years, it seems every investigation suddenly gets an operation name. But Operation Bluebird is Essex Police response to the clandestines that are found in the back of lorries, for example. We have a set response of how we deal with those, which is a multi-agency response. When it comes to dealing with predominantly some of the ways that we find those people that are in modern-day slavery, such as through cannabis grows, cannabis factories. Again, we have a set procedure that we follow, which is a multi-agency procedure that we follow through the national referral mechanism. So we work very closely as police, not just with the Community Safety Partnership, but with the Home Office, with Immigration, with Border Force. Every force work closely together. I've got a colleague and a friend that I worked with for many years that works on the Metropolitan Police's modern-day slavery team, and they do lots of work throughout the country around that particular problem. So I want to provide that reassurance that it's not something that is not being dealt with, because it certainly is. It just might not necessarily be advertised as much, because again, as you've rightly highlighted, to a certain extent there is organised crime that is behind that, and when we try to dismantle organised crime groups, we don't necessarily always highlight it. Yes.
Can I just come in there, please?
You can, but then Michelle wants to.
You just brought that 39 people up. That was reported. Loads of those lorries were reported by people in Purfleet, so they knew it was going on. And perhaps the question shouldn't go online, but if those people were illegal, and if they hadn't been found then, they would have dispersed into Thurrock. And that always worries me to think that, you know, it's awful and it's a terrible thing that did happen, but if that they hadn't have been found like that, because I don't think the man in the lorry knew what he was going to go around to open it up, but they just would have dispersed and got lost in the system. So I just want to know that work is going on to stop that, because Purfleet is very vulnerable, because it hasn't got the safety checks perhaps that the docks have, you know, and it's a bit more. I hope it's not as easy now. That's what I meant.
So Operation Bluebird is something that came about as a result of Operation Melrose, which is the investigation into the death of those 39 that you referred to, and it is something certainly within the west of Essex. It is certainly something that is a well-rehearsed and well-oiled operation, that when we do come across information that suggests that people might be in the back of the lorry, there is a policing response, and it's a policing response that involves multi-agencies. So, I can certainly sit here and provide that assurance that we have a clear plan of how we deal with that, and it's a clear plan how we try to prevent it, and we prevent it by stopping that inflow. Because if they know that they're going to be stopped, and we're going to prevent them coming into the country, it means the organised crime groups that might be behind the sort of exploitation of bringing those people in, it means it stops their sort of supply coming in, because people are not going to pay money to be sort of shipped in if they know they're going to be detained and then dealt with through immigration.
So let's be really clear that a large percentage of people that try to come are vulnerable, extremely vulnerable, and not out to do anything terrible. They see a better life, and my reassurance is it's a multi-agency that will give them support. My concern isn't people being, distributed through Grays and Thurrock. It's to make sure that the safety of the vulnerability of those people and the desperation for most of them to go through that trauma of what they go through, and with no guarantees at the end, and often going into modern slavery and human trafficking. So I'm really pleased that it's the welfare of those people that we really care about, because that's important.
Yes.
I just think that
Right, moving on. So, yes.
Thank you. So I think, the bit for us that we focus on is those that have, are here in our community and are working in slavery. You should have all hopefully received an invite yesterday to some Essex-wide training that's been put on through the lead in Essex Police. He also delivers training regularly to staff here in Thurrock, so that we're trying to brief everybody up. I've got another piece to do with like the planning teams, etc., so that they've got a different awareness there. But also we wrote at the start of the a briefing for community forums on it, because we think that's the other way of harnessing that intelligence. The Community Safety Enforcement Engagement Officer sent that out to all community forums with an offer for him to personally attend every single one of those forums and deliver it. Sadly, only 2 forums have come back and taken it up on it, and that's been delivered in those 2 forums now. So, again, if you've got that opportunity to raise with your forum chairs, that opportunity is there, and Neil's happy to come out, and he's got plenty of handouts to bring out to people as well, just to try and get, people are using the nail bars, etc., just so it's in their minds, what could be going on here. And like the police for the response with Bluebird, our social care teams have got a very detailed set of guidelines of how to support those people when they come through. And it's about, we've done some work trying to raise with schools, particularly the primary schools. It might be someone in domestic servitude that's bringing a child into school every day. What's the engagement from them? And is there an opportunity there maybe to unearth some wider issues?
Thank you. So I've only got a couple more points. So we spoke in, I think it's an extremely ambitious report, and it's really thorough. Probably my feedback to you would be there seems to be an awful lot of duplication, and I just feel that the poor person that sat and put this together must have where am I? Because there's quite a lot of duplication in some of it. So I do feel for that person. It's as I say, it's an extremely thorough, and it's really quite ambitious, very ambitious. There's so much in there that in your future agenda that you want to do. And this is not trying to be again disrespectful. It's fantastic to be ambitious. How realistic do you think it all is, or do you think it's a question of this is our vision, and these are the points that we really do need to do, and this would be a nice part of it to end up doing it? Because it is very ambitious, which is fantastic to be, because I think that's what we need to be in Thurrock, rather than being sort of apologetic. I think it's great to see all the things you want to do, because I think it's really, really good. But my question is, how confident are you in us all, because it's all of us and it isn't just the teams there, in all of us signing up and being able to deliver this?
We had this discussion, 9 priorities is huge. Some of them in previous years we've hidden them because we've merged them together. So I guess my challenge back to you is, yes, it is a lot of work. It is a lot of priorities. Which ones do you want us to prioritise? Which one of those priorities in there would you be confident for us to drop and say we're not going to do that?
None of them, if I'm honest, because it would be wrong. Yeah. It really would be wrong, because you've focused on all the things that need to be done, but knowing that the financial constraints that we're under as a council, I think it's important to, and being realistic is probably taking it too far, but you know, we don't want to say, oh, we've got no money, so we can't be ambitious. You've got to be ambitious because everything in here matters, and it matters to every single resident in Thurrock. But, you know, because I couldn't tell you to drop any of them because I don't think any of them could be dropped. So what can we do to help you deliver this?
If I could just come in there on a couple of those points. I think a lot of this does, by its nature, depend on good partnership working. Not all of this is although we coordinate it all and you know, we do a lot of work around it, it absolutely relies on partners. So and different teams within the council. Now, we can only really talk for the here and now. We can't predict what any kind of future restructure is going to look like, what our future financial situation is going to be like. So all of that may impact how we deliver, or if we deliver, on certain elements of our priorities. So I guess really the ask from us would be around when those savings come forward and things like that, that you're mindful of the impact. So if there's a saving, just hypothetically, you know, put forward in children's services, how might that affect the community safety partnership? So it's not looking, you know, in a siloed approach, it's looking at the wider picture. Because we absolutely rely on partners, we absolutely rely on each of the teams. So, for example, we've talked about modern day slavery. That's led by our adult social care team. You've mentioned drugs and things. We've got our public health team. You know, the community safety team is actually very small. You know, it lacks resilience, in all honesty. But we absolutely can't emphasise that enough. We rely on our partners.
Well, I think it comes across really clearly how passionate you are, and you know, I think we ought to be very grateful that how passionate you are about the work you do, because clearly, if you weren't, you wouldn't be as ambitious as you are. And I think my probably ask is, and to have it noted, that when we go for the savings, that if we're doing savings in things, there is an impact that is assessed against the community safety partnership and against your 9 priorities. Any of the savings, what would that affect out of those 9 savings? Because I think without all of the information, it's very difficult to make a constructive and a balanced answer, isn't it? And we all know that we've got to save money, but are we saving money with one hand that's actually going to cost us twice as much with the other hand if we don't get it right? So I would ask that, you know, let's add that into, I think that's important, that we add that to the report today, because I think that's the only way that we can look to deliver as much of this as we can for you.
As Cheryl said, a lot of it goes out to different directorates. So it'd be good, I think, as you as Chair asking, that those like social care, health and wellbeing, all the different parts of who meet, that they could send a little bit back to us so we actually get that answer back. You know, so I think we, you know, because we go through a lot of meetings, isn't there? And a lot of meetings we get the same thing that we're dealing with all the time, you know. And you do sometimes, hate to say it, get fed up with hearing the same thing because it's replicated all the time. No, I've been around a bit too long probably, but I think you do hear it because if you're on so many committees, you hear the same thing over and over again. And I think we've got to, in a way, try to stop that, you know, from going to different. So I think a little feedback from each, you know, it doesn't have to be a long paper, but just small feedback.
It has to be the correct information. Michelle, you wanted to come?
we've still got to be mindful. Section 17 still applies to us of the Crime and Disorder Act, which is everything we do has to take into account and make sure we've considered the impact on community safety. But it's also every person that we've got on the street is a guardian. They're a visible presence. We've got a wonderful officer that we got through Safer Streets. Currently, he's dedicated to Grays High Street. Without the intelligence that he has put in and the engagement that he has done with those businesses to get some of that intelligence, I know it would have taken the police an awful lot longer to be able to get the results that they did down there. And he sent something through this morning as some intel and he was on the Shop Safe radio, which, funding of that at the moment is questionable whether we'll keep going with that. But he was on the radioed the town centre team who happened to be in the vicinity. Action dealt with, that person was arrested. So, I think we can't underestimate just that guardianship, but also we talk about perceptions and fear of crime, and we all know if you see somebody on the street in a uniform in a high visibility, yes, we'd love it all to be a police officer, but anybody who's there in that role offers reassurance. And the young people's voice that we've done the last 2 years, and the first thing we say to them, what would make you feel safer? And they say it's the presence of an adult that's trusted. Whether that a youth worker, someone in high vis, whichever, that's something that really reduces that fear of crime as well.
Thank you, but I do think it's important because we know that the budget setting is going to be challenging, and I think it will be really useful to pin every one of the savings back to one of your 9 priorities, because I think that gives us a clearer picture. I've only really got one more thing. We talked about knife crime being extremely high, didn't we, on everything? And it is something that does concern me every time I walk into this council building, is the fact that the reception is so vulnerable that we have to have a security officer there. And I don't think I would be particularly comfortable sat in there. I mean, back in the old days, it was behind a desk and it was fine. What do we do to, support our security staff with a view to, and I don't know the extreme of stab vests is needed, but the fact that we have the high knife crime here, and we know that we do get some people that are extremely angry, anxious, and very emotional, and that all doesn't bode well sometimes for people lashing out and things. And yet we've got people standing there in their shirts and, somebody behind reception. And for me, perception there it's scary. I've seen some people kicking off downstairs and outside. And, I just look and think, what can we do to make sure that our own staff are safe?
I absolutely share your concerns and have numerous conversations with the security manager around it. I understand it's not our directorate, but I understand he has placed an order for vests and for body-worn camera, but that would have to come from, I think, is it Mark Bradbury?
Mark Bradbury's he's the director responsible for the security staff.
But do absolutely share your concerns that the police have a real good presence around here and have been supporting and have taken action against individuals. So,
Okay, has anybody else got anything?
Just a quick one.
You can.
It's you that keeps bringing up things that makes me...
So it's my fault?
Yeah. 6 years ago, more than that, somebody tailgated into the old offices, right? I was on my own in that office. He got into the offices, he pretended what he was doing. He stole from my purse. He stole money. I still didn't know till I got out to spend money and didn't have it. That was all that long ago. I pursued the chief exec to get something done. We have not got any panic buttons underneath. We was given a little panic thing which I thought was wasn't worth what it was given to us with. But nothing has been done from there. All right, we've got badges we can get through on, but it doesn't stop someone in certain places tailgating someone else. Because how many people in these offices turn around on someone and say, have you got a badge? Yeah, and I do as well, Michelle. And because of that, happened to me, that man could have stabbed me in there and nobody would have known for hours. Police did come. He was in this building for 2 hours, going in the men's, doing his hair. They've got him on camera. They had a picture of him. I had to go down to the police station and look through a mugshot. Nothing was ever done about it. Nothing at all. And we haven't moved on. That's just what I wanted to say. We haven't moved on from there because this is still a very vulnerable building to be in. You know, when the MP got stabbed, my counterpart said, do we want to go back to doing surgeries? I said, no, thank you. I don't want to. I've been put in too many positions in too many years to know that I don't want to do it anymore. So I've got a shiver going up my spine. But that is, to me, nothing's been done. We haven't moved on from there, and we've got to do something. You know, because we are, as councillors, we are vulnerable in here. And I think, to be honest, we are more vulnerable in these new offices than we were in that one.
Even the car park.
Yeah, underneath there, yeah, when lights go off and you go out at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night and there's no lights on. I did that the other night. It was on my own.
This is probably not the forum.
No, it may not be, but you brought up the security in the offices.
But I think it's valuable, and I think it's something that we need to take
got
back.
to follow up.
But I think it's something we can follow up outside of this meeting. So, okay, anybody got anything else? No. Michelle, Cheryl, District Commander. Okay. So he's had enough, yeah. Okay, so we move on to the recommendations, and this is not something that I'm happy doing, just noting things, because I don't think it's what it is at the moment, but it's something we have to do. But I don't think it means much. But we ask that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee note the performance of Thurrock Community Safety Partnership for the year 2022-2023 and the Community Safety Partnership priorities agreed for the 2023-2024. Everybody happy to approve those?
Not really, Chair, because I don't like noting things either, because I don't think there's any meat there.
So
so just as long as it goes down on.
So are we happy to say that we have been through the report, we have viewed the report, we have challenged the report, and our recommendation to come out of this is that when the budget is set, we want all savings to be aligned with one of the 9 priorities. I do think that 1.2 is applicable, that we understand the role that elected members play in encouraging reporting by residents and have awareness of our priorities in hidden harms. I think that's something that we can support because we've had a good conversation about that, and it's something that we know that we can take forward, and that members promote the activity of the community safety partners to create a safety Thurrock and reassure members. And I think that's something that we can do. Yeah. And are we all happy to do that? Yeah. But number one, we're refusing to note. Okay. So item 6, I think you've done your part there, District Commander.
Unless you have any other particular questions around crime within Thurrock, that would have been my update. The only thing to say is that, on my computer's died, we actually have seen a reduction of 2.8% now in the rolling 12 months up to July in reported crime. So it's heading in the right direction.
Thank you. It won't when we get out there telling everyone you've got to report everything. It's going to go sky high, and you're going to go, what's going on? What's going on? Yeah. Okay. Just with item 7, with the work programme. So we would like this to come back in 6 months, so we have an update. And it's. I mean, please, do not do one of these, as thick as it is. You know, please don't spend hours on it. It's just literally a top-line update. You know, let's be sensible, just with, you know, your data to support it.
So our next meeting is 23rd of January, so that would be 5.5 months, if you want to put it in for 23rd
Yeah,
of January.
is that reasonable?
My only concerns is around the deadlines for reports, so I'm not sure we'll hit the... We'll have to, if we could come back through Dem Services.
So, I mean, there's no issue in us requesting a meeting in February rather than January, or having an additional one. It's not a problem, but it's something we can work out.
Okay.
But providing we can work out when you can have the reports, I think it would be important to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. I also on the work programme, I'd like our next meeting to have an update on the waste strategy, please, because I think that's important.
Yep.
Anything else anybody currently would like to be added to the work programme? No?
It'd probably come under cleaning and greening still, but I think I'm getting a lot of stuff about why we're not cutting the weeds everywhere, you know, and I think there's something Vincent or somebody that...
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting a load, and I think it's even been on television as well.
So perhaps we would like to invite Paul Southwell, who'll be really pleased, to come in January and just talk to us about his. I think he's an extremely impressive individual, and he's just said yes to me a lot, so that's very good. But understand his vision on how we're going to make sure that we have got our parks are fit for purpose, what our actually managing our cleaning and greening, what that vision looks like. If he can just give a very top line on how we're working with the community with allotments, how that's working, because obviously, you know, there's a lot of people now, because of the cost of living crisis, are growing their own food, and how are we doing with allotments, and are there opportunities?
I didn't mean it was parks and allotments, because mine are fine. So I've got no problem.
Oh, I'm
with
all
that,
right,
but
Jack.
Yeah, it's fine. I'll keep an eye on mine. But it's the weeds on the side of the road and where you can't and things. I just wanted him to be here so that we ask.
So we ask him just to come and just take questions.
Yeah, because I think we've got signs up where everything's grown over the sign and you can't see.
So I
the road
suggest
sign.
you talk to your leader, because he says it's all about the bees.
Don't worry, I will.
It's all about the bees.
That's right. Yeah, I'll give him bees.
Only thing about allotments, I know there's a huge waiting list, so that might be worth knowing a bit more about that.
So I would like to have something back about allotments. Currently where we are, what's the waiting list, what's the vision, have we got any areas that we could currently turn into allotments for people? Are we still splitting allotments so they can have a shared plot, so half and half? So I think it would be really good. Okay. So this now concludes the business of the meeting tonight. Thank you very much, and I think it's been quite a healthy debate, and I really appreciate your honesty. I think I would like to say, I'm not saying you'd be dishonest, but I think you've been quite open with us, and I think that's the only way we're going to help and move on and be able to work in a partnership, in a symbiotic relationship. So I really do appreciate that. So thank you very much. I declare the meeting closed at 20:49.